Well, welcome to Sunday School this morning at Bethany Missionary Baptist Church. We're going to be in 1 Samuel 16 and 17. Before we get started, let's get some prayer requests. Anybody have a prayer request this morning? Yeah, we're going to be on lesson 9 because BJ and I swapped. He was getting in late, so he asked me to move up. So we're kind of getting y'all confused. But okay. All right. Let's remember Vicky. Okay, Terry, thank you. Wayne Bixler, let's remember him. He's been in the hospital. Anybody else? If not, Brother Mark, would you open us up in prayer, please? Amen. 1 Samuel chapter 16, starting in verse 1 there. And the Lord said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thine horn with oil, and go, and I will send thee to Jesse's the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hear me, he will kill me. And the Lord said, Take an heifer with thee, and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show thee what thou shalt do. And thou shalt anoint unto me him whom I have named. And Samuel did which the Lord spake, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled his coming, and said, Cometh thou in peace? So an unusual thing is happening. The Lord has told Samuel that we need a different king. We need a king, not that you choose, we need a king in whom I'm choosing. So in verse 1 there of chapter 16, And the Lord said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn? You would think that there was a death. You would think mourning would bring about a death. But Samuel, it shows you the closeness to God that Samuel was. And that him mourning over Saul's sin of rejecting the Lord. How many times in our lives do we mourn over somebody else's sin? It's so easy living in the flesh for us to just say, oh, well, I figured he was like that, or oh, well, I knew she wasn't that good. But to think about Samuel and his mourning like a death, mourning over Saul's sin, that is something that I fall very short, very short. You can do a lot of praying, but do you mourn over someone's sin? It's eye-opening to me this morning. I've taught this about David and Goliath many times, but I've never seen this. And I've never seen the compassion that Samuel has. Samuel, no wonder the Lord moved him. And when the Lord came to him and told him that we needed to move on because I have rejected Saul reigning over Israel, the Lord withdrew from Saul. Sad commentary when the Lord withdraws Himself from our life. And the Lord wanted a new king, not a king that they wanted, but a king that God wanted. Mourning. Mourning over sin. Boy, what a sermon just in those words. The compassion to mourn over someone else's sin. Leave yourself alone and mourn over someone else's sin. Awakening. It's an awakening for us on how we really look upon someone's sin. Verse 2 there, and Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me." Saul had gotten so far away from God that even as much as Samuel helped him, Samuel was fearful that if he went to Saul, that Saul would kill him. You see, we rush into things. We rush into many choices we have instead of turning to God, waiting upon God, seeking His will, instead of our microwave, "I want it now" answer. We go ahead of God. And God says that we need to be still and hear Him. Psalms 46. God still had work for the prophet Samuel, but He had to get Samuel to move on from his mourning. I need you to stop grieving. I need you to do a work for me. So in verse 3 there, and called Jesse to the sacrifice. Isn't that amazing? God not only told him to go, but He provided the very place for him to find the new king. Called Jesse. Go to Jesse's house. A specific place for a specific person that God was calling. God was making a way. Samuel, all you got to do is listen to what I say, and everything will be fine. Verse 5, and he said, "Peaceably I come to the sacrifice." They thought Samuel was coming to cause trouble, but no, Samuel wasn't coming to cause trouble. Samuel was coming to do the Lord's work. In verse 6, and it came to pass when they were come, and he looked, and Elam, and said, "Surely the Lord anointed him is before us." So Samuel has these sons that come across. And each one is looked at by Samuel. Jesse's sons, I mean. Each one is looked at. Each one, he says, surely this is the one. This has got to be the man. This is a good-looking kid. He's surely the one that God wants. But no. That's not the one. Now we come to verse 11. And Samuel said unto Jesse, "Are here all thy children?" And he said, "There reigneth yet one youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep." Wonder why David was pushed back. Pushed back. You don't count. In God's thinking, in God's way of seeing things, the least shall come forth. Bring him, fetch him. I will not sit down till he cometh. In verse 12, and he sent and brought him in. He was ruddy and withal, and a beautiful countenance, and goodly to look to. And the Lord said, "Arise, anoint him. This is he. This is the one I want. Of all the ones you brought before me, no, this is my choice." So this was God's choice. And when God chooses, everything is right. Wow. What a setting. Think about it. Samuel was mourning over Saul, and God had David to take away that mourning. God had David ready to move Israel forward, to get the giant out of the way. Do we call upon God when the giant's in our way? Or do we try to take care of it ourselves? So many times we think we can do it, when all along it's God that can do it, not us. Putting stuff up on ourselves is wrong, when we got a God up in heaven who is able and who is ready. Look at verse 13. And Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David that day forward. The Spirit of the Lord came upon David that day forward. You see, when the Lord comes into our life, He's with us from that day forward. He's never going to leave us. He's always going to be with us. So David is anointed. David is set apart. There was something special about him because he was God's man. So David is set upon a journey to take. And oh, what a journey is he about to take. Our lesson skipped to 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 34. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of the mouth. And he arose again, and I caught him in his beard, and smote him, and slew him. The servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. Goliath was mean. He would get up there and he would speak bad words toward the people about God. He cut God down. He said those things that were not right. Goliath had all the armor, great big huge sword that he loved so much, the sword that he sharpened, the sword that he polished, and the very sword was what was fixing to take his life. But look in verse 29 there. When they were questioning David, David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? Boy, does that not hit us? Our neighborhood this morning has people not going to church. Everywhere, mowing their yards, feeding their dogs, playing with their kids. And we drive by. Is there not a cause? Could we not stop and ask them to go to church? Where is our faith? Verse 32, And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight the Philistines. All the soldiers were so scared of Goliath. They thought they were going to lose their life. And now they got this young teenage boy that's going up against big Goliath. And if he loses, we're all going to die. So what does David do? He said, let no man's heart fail him. Calm them down. Let them know God is in control. God is with me. He has put me here for this time, for this place. Anointing of God's man. Verse 37. And David said, Moreover, the Lord hath delivered me out of the palm of the lion and out of the palm of the bear, and he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said unto him, David, go, and the Lord be with you. What Saul was actually saying was, I'm scared of Goliath. You go on, David, and I'm going to pray the Lord be with you, whether you die or whether you survive. I'm going to pray that the Lord be with you. I'm going to pray that the Lord take care of you. Verse 38, And Saul armed David with armor, and he put a helmet of brass upon his head, and he armed him with a coat of nails, and David girded the sword upon his armor, and he arrayed to go for he had not proven it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these things, for I have not proven them. And David put them off. David knew where the proof was. It wasn't in weaponry. It wasn't in protection. David knew that the proof was in God and heaven. God, Jehovah. Can we catch that this morning? That doctors might say this thing, and lawyers might say this thing, and many things come against us. But proof for your problems today is in God and heaven, just like it was for David. Where are you putting your proof at? Where are we looking to? And the Philistines, verse 41, and the Philistines came on and drew near to David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. Here comes big Goliath. It's fixing to be game on time. The fight's fixing to happen. Verse 43, and the Philistines said unto David, Am I a dog that thou comest to me with stars? And the Philistines cursed David by his gods, showing that he was not believing in our gods and our God. And the Philistines, verse 44, said unto David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowl of the air and the beast of the field. Goliath is trying to intimidate David to turn and run just like all the rest of them. That he came out there 40 days and 40 nights and told them what he was going to do, and the rest of them ran, including Big Saul. Verse 45, Then David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I cometh to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. David tells him, You come with all these things, but I come in the name of the Lord. Wow. Problems come our way. Do we come to our problems in the name of the Lord? Or do we come to our problems, well, this doctor said this, and this doctor said that. This MRI said this. But I come in the name of the Lord. You got 5 days to live. I come in the name of the Lord. That should be our battle cry. How are we coming? In the name of the Lord. Verse 46. This day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand. Little tiny teenage boy talking to a big giant. And I will smite thee and take thee head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowl of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. That all the earth is going to know there's a God in Israel. I don't care what you say to me, how you curse my God, there's a God in Israel. You're not going to intimidate me. Devil, you can't have my place. My place is in church. That's where I'm going to be. Because there's a God in Israel taking care of me. Verse 47, And all the assemblies shall know the Lord saveth not the sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's. We need that on our cars every day. Battle's not mine. The battle's the Lord's. And He will give you unto our hands. No, Goliath, this is not your day. And it came to pass, verse 48, And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and drew nigh to meet David, that David hastened, ranneth toward him with the army, and met the Philistines. Verse 49, And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone, slang it, and smote the Philistine in the forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon the face of the earth. Verse 50, So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Watch this. Verse 51. And David ran, stood upon the Philistine, took his sword, drew it out, slayeth thereof, and slew him, and cut his head off therewith. When the Philistine saw their champion was dead, they fled. When the enemy sees that you've got God on your side, the enemy flees. Goliath had his big sword that he sharpened, that he polished, that he carried with him. The thing that he thought was going to bring him victory caused him his death. What are we carrying today? What are we carrying like Goliath that we think is going to make everything all right, when we've got a God in heaven that's going to make things right? We see giants coming toward us. God sees the opportunity for us to turn to Him. How many times have we went through the day and we saw something very tragic, looks like it's coming into our lives, and we don't call upon Him? The opportunity is the Lord's when we give it to Him. Turn to Him and see His glory. Watch His glory work in our lives when we give it all to Him. Let the thoughts of our mind be like David. I will trust God through it all. No matter what the diagnosis, I'm trusting God. Mark Farr, would you dismiss us?